97 South's Storytellers features conversations with professional songwriters and seeks to pull back the curtain on the art, craft, and career of songwriting. We'll bring you to those magical moments of creativity that have delivered the inspiring songs that make up the soundtrack of our lives. I'm Paul McGuire, and joining us today on 97 South's Storytellers podcast from the Desert Star Theater is country recording artist, songwriter, philanthropist, and entrepreneur, Australian-born, Canadian-raised, Gord Bamford. His 26 CCMA awards make him the most awarded male country artist in Canadian history. Beyond his music industry success, Gord's philanthropic efforts have raised nearly $6 million for over 63 children's charities across Canada, earning him the CCMA Humanitarian of the Year Award and the MusiCounts Inspired Minds Ambassador Award. With his unique blend of traditional and modern country, Gord's artistry and revival-like live performances inspire fans and communities alike. Join us as we celebrate a quarter century of Gord Bamford's remarkable contributions to music and life, and talk about his upcoming Just Getting Started tour on the occasion of 25 years as a recording artist. Hello, my friend.
How are you?
I'm good, man. We've done this a few times over the years.
Been a while.
It's been a little while, but we've talked a whole bunch over the years. I think I met you in 2005. So that's things were
a couple years ago
cooking already for you. But here we are celebrating 25 years of being in the music business. Happy anniversary, man.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It's crazy to even think about how fast this went by. You know, it's
does it feel like a blip?
Yeah, like I mean, you think back on it, and you know that old saying, "Time flies," is very true for sure.
Milestones, are they important to you? Have they been important to you when you hit 10? Like, for example, when you hit 10 years in the business, do you remember that? Because that is often, I've heard people say that barrier, if you make it past that 10-year line, you're probably in it for life.
I don't really think of milestones. I would say I set more goals for myself to hit.
Yeah. And was that always the way? That's always the way you were?
Yeah. I mean, I've always been a guy that sets the bar really high, you know, not just for me, but for people that I work with or around, but always kind of have a goal in mind, you know, when we set out to do stuff and try to hit that mark, you know, and so far it's worked out pretty good.
Okay, so 25 years ago, what were you doing? Give me an idea about what Gord Bamford was like 25 years ago.
Now I got to think how old I am now, but yeah, I mean, I was just, I guess, you know, just a kid, man. I was just trying to figure out what I was going to do. I mean, I honestly had no inkling to be doing what I'm doing today. It was never like, hey, I'm going to be a singer-songwriter and be in the music business. I mean,
You weren't thinking that 25 years ago.
No.
So where were you? What were you doing?
I mean, I grew up on a family farm. I was born in Australia.
Yeah.
So my mom and dad split up when I was 5, and I moved back to Lacombe, Alberta. Grew up on a family farm and was a pretty difficult kid to deal with for my mom, I think. Or she got remarried. I was pretty hard on my stepdad at the time. So my mom kind of shipped me over to my uncle's, my Uncle Gord, actually, and that's who I was named after. So I spent most of my childhood over there, and he taught me a lot in life. He was like a mentor to me, a dad to me. But I always was kind of scared of him. And I think, you know, not to the point of he was a mean person, but he always kind of instilled a little fear in me. So I was
an authority figure.
Yeah, and it's just kind of I guess my mom knew what she needed to do at the time to turn me around as a person, and that happened for me. So I spent most of my childhood with my uncle and his family, and I grew up on a Western heritage type lifestyle and played a lot of baseball. They coached, my uncles coached us, and had a lot of fun back then, and kind of learned how to live life, I guess, through that.
Okay, but that's going back even further than 25 years now. So, but 25 years,
48, 38, 20, yeah, 20, I guess.
So when you first decide, okay, why did you decide to get into music?
I don't even think I got out of the house till I was 25 years old. I mean, I find myself as a dad today going like, can't wait, you got to get out and do something, kid. He's 19, my son.
Yeah,
the girls are still younger, but yeah, I kind of reflect back on Well, I don't think I did that, but yeah, you know, I just was just.
But that 1990, that late 90s Gord Bamford, that early 2000s Gord Bamford, before the first single, what the first single came out, was it 96?
94.
94?
Yeah.
94, okay. So give me Gord Bamford. What was going through your mind then?
I mean, I started singing in grade 3, and
Why?
and
Just
it was like a school course. Like
it was it? Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, I was like, yeah, it was a Christmas play. We were doing the 12 Days of Christmas, and I was the partridge in the pear tree, and they'd have a partridge, you know, those cardboard cutouts, and I popped my head out, and a partridge in a pear tree. That was me. That's how I got going. But
And everybody in the room went, "Oh,
he's got a good voice." Yeah, yeah, and you know, and then the early 90s in high school, I mean, Garth Brooks was all the rage, and like 90s country, and everybody that could wear a cowboy hat and sing was getting record deals. And actually a friend of mine who played guitar and didn't sing that well, but played guitar. I couldn't play guitar at the time. He was kind of the Garth Brooks, run around and play music, and so I ended up, we're like a little duo. So we would put on shows at lunchtime in the auditorium, and some people thought it was cool, and some people thought it wasn't, and yeah, we kind of just did our thing.
Okay, I got to dig into this a little bit, Gord. So, because high school's, I know, I remember it, I liked it, but it's still tough. I got a kid going through it right now, and that takes some stones to get up there and play for.
Yeah, I mean,
and to sing in front of your high school, and you're an athlete at this point, right?
Yeah, you know, playing football and playing basketball and playing hockey, doing all the sports, like kind of the jock, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
You know, being a singer wasn't very cool.
Yeah.
You know, so, but I found out, you know, it was cool after a while, because, you know, all the girls liked it. So it was like, oh, why the girls like singers? So.
And it's cool if you're good.
Yeah.
And you were good.
I was pretty good.
Did you think you were pretty good then? Did you think you were good?
I didn't know. I mean, I really didn't know. And I mean, I was told I was good.
Yeah. Your buddy who played guitar was like, no, you're good.
Yeah, he wasn't. Yeah, he was like the showman, and I'd just stand there and sing. So he'd run around with his guitar and his headset.
Well, you know, even today, I mean, we're going to go, not to jump ahead again, but even today, I mean, you kind of like, you move around a little bit, but you kind of do your thing on stage. You stand there and you sing.
I had to adjust to that a little bit, you know, to learn. I think, you know, back when after that, and you got going, like back in the day, there was clubs all over Western Canada. You could take a band, you could play, you know, Monday to Friday, and you'd make your $2,500 a week and divvy it out to everybody, and lose
$2,500
or whatever it was. I mean, there was 4 or 5.
I'm in the wrong business.
No, but there's 5 people to pay out.
Yeah,
you got a Suburban, and you're down the road, and most of the time you spent it all on a VLT machine, and then the bar tab was more than what they pay you. So it was like, you know. But I believe today, like, that's really what honed my skills of learning how to perform, because I get to go in front of people every week.
Going back to the high school thing, and you're performing for people at school, and they're responding. They're like, they're pretty good. You guys are doing covers.
Yeah, I mean, it was Garth Brooks and Dunn. Like, we thought we were them, man.
And it's like people are eating their lunch, and they're kind of, you guys are the musical.
Yeah, we had free show in the auditorium.
Just for fun. The teachers like it, and it's kind of a nice thing. That sounds really nice.
Yeah, you know, it was fun. And
was this your musical birth? That was the kind of like where it came from?
I think as a singer, for sure.
Yeah.
I started really young singing. My mom sang, my dad sang.
Yeah.
They had, you know, their little band in Australia, apparently, which I don't remember much of. But
yeah,
it was always, you know, I'd go to those music festivals they'd have, you know, compete in those and do pretty well at them. And then it was something I enjoyed, but it was never something that I'm like, I think I can make a living doing this, right?
So what was going through your mind then? I know not everybody in the early days of high school knows what they want to do for a living, but what did you think you were going to end up doing while you were kind of having fun? Did you think you were going to be an athlete?
I wanted to play baseball. I wanted to play at a high level, which I did, you know, eventually, but wasn't committed enough to it, I guess, at that time in my life. But that was my plan. I mean, I want to be an athlete. I thought it would be a great way to make a living, you know?
Yeah.
You know, fun.
But was that was a realistic expectation? Like your family and stuff were kind of, was supportive of that?
Yeah. And I had
You do okay in school? Were you doing all right?
I wasn't a great student.
No.
I barely got through high school.
Yeah.
I think I had 101 credits, and I couldn't wait to get out of there. But
did you play an instrument in
No, I never did.
No.
I didn't really start playing guitar till I was out of high school, and I'm still learning how to play it. So it's not something that I get to play with such great musicians now, like best in the world. I mean, I've never called myself a musician, but it's nice that I can write songs and play guitar now, for sure.
I think the fact that you sing and write songs makes you a musician, just so you know, just
Yeah.
letting you know. Okay, so when does it change from being you and your buddy keeping people who are eating peanut butter and jam sandwiches at lunchtime happy? When does it change and become a little bit more serious and focused?
Well, my mom was my biggest fan, and she still is to this day. And she used to drive me up and down the road and get me permits to get into the bar and sing in these contests because I was underage, and I would do pretty well in them. And then
So are you saying like a bunch of adults in there, and there's
Yeah, like
15-year-old Gord Bamford?
well, I was 16, 17 years
Yeah.
old, I'd be singing in the bars.
Yeah.
And I went into this Search for the Stars. It was a Q91 Search for the Stars, a radio station was putting on. And I got into the last qualifier in a place called Patricia, Alberta.
Qualifier. What was the prize? What was the if you won the whole thing? What was it?
Well, so you go on to the final, which was the next night,
Okay.
which was in Olds at the Hay City Saloon at the time. So I won that night in Patricia, and I'll never forget this. And this guy come up to me, and he's like, "One day we're going to see you play at the Saddle Dome." I'm like, anyways, I went on the next night. I won that. I won the whole thing. And I got my first song on the radio. And then years later, this guy come through the autograph line. I was playing at the Saddle Dome opening for George Strait. Same guy. Said, "I told you."
Come on.
Yeah, pretty surreal.
Okay, you skipped over the fact that you got your first song on the radio there. Was that was the prize for
That
winning?
was a prize.
That
You
they're
got
going to play your song?
it was a Sunday Sound, a studio in Calgary. Rob Bartlett was his name, the producer, I believe. Yeah. And you got your song on the radio and on that network.
Yeah.
And there's a song called Forever
Yeah, it wasn't
Starts
added
Today.
to all of the country
No.
stations across Canada, but
No,
it
and
got
was
played
like-
on that day.
It was like it sounded like I was 14 years old. Like
What
when
was
you-
the song? What was the song called?
It's called Forever Starts Today. Don't go look for it. But it's called Forever Starts Today.
Can you find it?
I think you probably can.
Forever Starts Today.
That's the first one.
By the way, that's a great title for a first song.
Yeah, that's when I think I put a band together and started traveling the circuit, I guess you can say, and
Yep.
just started playing. And I was, really having the time of my life, playing these bars. And I mean, young, and
How old were you?
I probably started going around 19, 20. I started playing the bars.
Okay, and how many gigs a week? Or a
Well, you
month or
play all
whatever?
week. Like there was so many club dates. They would go Monday to Saturday, and you play 4 sets a night.
So you're out of high school, and
Out of
this
high
is now
school.
your full-time job. Music has become.
Well, I
your
tried a
full-time
bunch of jobs. I got into electrical, and I got into the concrete business where I drove truck quite a bit. And it was kind of like coming from a small community. They kind of really helped me out. Like I got involved with some friends of ours that own a concrete business that kind of let me drive truck when I wasn't on the road playing.
Yeah.
So I was kind of doing that, and I think everybody's kind of pulling for me to.
The community
yeah.
helped get you where you are.
Yeah, for sure.
That's amazing. Well, that kind of makes sense because you've always wanted to give back to the communities that have supported you over the course of your career. Mm-hmm. Because they literally helped you get to where you are today.
Yeah, for sure. I think growing up in a smaller community was a bonus for me to get where I'm at. And if my mom wouldn't have realized I needed some discipline and some help in life and some life skills and sent me over to kind of be raised by my uncle, I probably wouldn't have turned out the way I did. So she was smart, I guess, in that, and learned a lot of good life skills through him. And
That moment that you heard your song on the radio, that you heard your voice over the airwaves, where were you?
Well,
what was that like? How did it get
yeah,
received?
it was kind of fitting. I was driving down the highway with my mom when we first heard my song, and she was more excited than I was. I mean, I think she just about hit the ditch.
You start doing the circuit, and that's just it. The momentum never stopped.
No, I mean, I got off the circuit for a while because, I think at some point I was like, well, you need to get a real job. I got told that quite a bit, which was more of a motivator for me to keep doing it. It was like, this is a real job. I enjoy it. But I got off the road for a while and went and got a real job.
Yep.
And I just didn't like it.
So you were still playing, but trying to bring in a little bit more of a steady income.
Yeah, like a little bit more of a stable, normal life.
Were you writing, like when you weren't at work? Did you start writing
No,
songs at that point?
I got taught how to write songs
Okay.
by Byron Hill is his name. He was a huge mentor to me. Probably wouldn't be where I'm at today without him. I had a song called God's Green Earth, which was written by Gil Grand
Yeah.
and Byron Hill.
Yep.
And I cut it, and I was just on his website one day. I was checking out the writers, And there was a blurb from Byron on there talking about this young Canadian guy that had cut this song, and he might be the best vocal and best I've heard since whatever I don't know what comparison was, but he'd written, Foolhardy Memory for George Strait, and Nothing On But the Radio for Gary Allan, Lifestyles of Not So Rich and Famous. I'm like, wow. And then at the end of it said, like, one day I'd sure like to sit down and meet this guy or maybe work with him. So I'm like, well, he's talking about me, So I just reached out to him, because I'd seen him write that, and we wrote a song called "My Heart's a Genius," which was one of the first hits we had. And then we wrote another one called "Blame It on That Red Dress," and then we just kept writing. And he kept
wrote "Blame It on That Red Dress" that day.
The next day.
The next day.
Yeah, I wrote tons of hits with that man, and that man is a genius, and he taught me so much about writing songs, and he produced a bunch of my first records. The one thing I liked about him is, like, he wanted to continue to work with me, and he said, but only if we could get great songs and only if we could gel together.
Did that give you
it's
confidence?
It's pretty intimidating. You walk into a room with a guy that's got that sort of resume.
Yeah.
I don't know how to write a freaking song from the life of me. I got great ideas, though. And that's what he always told me. He says, come with titles. He says, come with titles. So I had boatloads of titles. And one of the best things Byron ever told me is just keep it simple. And I'll never forget that. And that's how, and when you think of my songs, they're meat and potato. They're simple. They're songs you can relate to. 3-4 chord songs. Like, honestly, like, I can honestly say that any song that I've ever written has been no more than 2 hours done deal. Like, we don't go, like a lot of other writers will write stuff and live with it and come back to it and do this and that. I have never had that experience. Like, and I think it's because of the people that I surround myself with, I think it's because of that. I always try to surround myself with people that are better than me. That's kind of my motto. Like, I've been really, really fortunate to have been taught how to write songs, and it is a process. Like, I always say anybody can write a song if you're willing to learn how to do it and understand the process of it. And I mean, I got taught by, I think, one of the best in the world. And then when the time was right, he's like, yeah, I want to produce a record on you. I'm like, well, I mean, I don't have any money. I can't, like, what do you want for it? Like, I can't afford.
Yeah.
And he'd been working with Gil Grand, the famous First Words. They wrote all that stuff together. And he just went, well, we won't worry about the money. We'll just make the record, and I'll try and get you a record deal. And I thought, that doesn't sound like somebody from the Nashville music business, because that's not the way it works.
No, that sounds like somebody who's got some confidence in you and knows a good thing when he sees it.
And we just went, man, he made these great records for me, and we wrote a ton of stuff. And then we had a bunch of hits. And then When Your Lips Are So Close was just this massive, massive hit that we wrote with him. And a guy by the name of Brent Baxter, who wrote one of my favorite songs, Monday Morning Church, Alan Jackson's song. It was a great song. And so I got to meet so many people through Byron, and he was such an awesome guy.
So when was the moment when you realized that you were in the business, though? Like, it must have been before you made the move to Nashville.
My mom took a line of credit out the first time for me to start making a record. I think it was like $25,000. That's the first record I made. I still have the line of credit. I don't use it. I still have the line of credit. And my wife, she was a big, big part of my success. And she never, and I think in the music business, my wife has never wavered. Like, I'm gone all the time. I have a hell of a good time when I'm out. I enjoy that. She's never ever once told me that I'm over the top or I shouldn't be doing this or doing that. I'll give her credit on that. I mean, because it's hard marriage is tough for everybody, right? So especially a guy in the music business that has got to where I'm at, I can't tell you one day that she's ever told me I'm doing something wrong or I can't do that. She just supported it all along.
Well, I'm just imagining your wife's parents, so your in-laws. the time when she says, I'm going to give a whole bunch of money to this
Yeah,
guy
they
who's
thought,
a singer.
They thought she was crazy.
Like, well, every parent's, one of every parent, or a nightmare scenario for parents, I think.
It worked
You're
out
going to
for
do
her.
what?
It worked out for her.
Oh, I know
She's
it's worked out.
got it all back. And then
I know it's worked out now. But can you imagine that? Like, every parent would be like, no, you're giving your money to a country singer? What do you do? What?
Yeah. I mean, that was before we got married too. Like, she's just, she's been just a wall of positivity. And I don't talk a lot about my marriage or my kids, a whole bunch. And, but it's been, big time supported by her for sure.
You said that everybody in your community kind of helped you along. If you needed a gig, there was a gig for you on the job site to kind of get a few bucks and pass the week or whatever. There's no, you're not playing on the weekend. Well, we've got something for you over here. It seems like, and your mom taking out line of credits, like these things happen. That old adage, it takes a village.
Yep.
It was actually completely 100% true in your case. And I mean, that's obviously the reason why you continue to just be so philanthropic with giving back to the community. That seems like it's like just second nature to you.
Yeah. I mean, the Gord Bamford Foundation's 17th year now. They're going on 17 years. And, our big event's our golf tournament, but we're just $4.5 million raised now, I think. And, we give a ton of money, driven to, youth and children and kids and multi-use facilities across Canada. It's the most rewarding thing I get to be a part of. It's the most satisfying thing for me too. So it's just hard to explain it until you're in the situation, and you can help. The Make-A-Wish Foundation and changing these kids' lives that are, terminally ill, and then send them to Disneyland, or I met this young guy. I'll never forget this ever. I mean, went to the Children's Hospital in Edmonton years ago, and there was this young man there, young boy, Daniel was his name, and he was in intensive care, and he hadn't moved. We went down into intensive care, which I wasn't prepared for at the time, to play some songs for the kids, and I mean, it was the toughest thing I ever did. But this young Daniel he didn't have any movement. He hadn't moved, but he liked music, and I had this J200 beautiful guitar that Gibson had given me to use, and I played this song, and I don't know what propelled me to do it, but I set the guitar on his chest. He was laying in the bed, and he reached out and touched it. And I mean, I'm going to get emotional here, but there wasn't a dry eye in the room, and I went home that day, and I couldn't believe it. And I got a call from his mom a couple weeks later requesting me to come back up to the hospital, and I thought it was a bad situation. I thought he'd passed away, but I walked into the one waiting room, and out walked Daniel.
Come on.
And he gave me a big hug, and basically music saved his life, right?
Oh my God, Gord.
So, yeah. So when you talk about that sort of stuff, it's pretty easy to do what you do.
Yeah. How's he doing today? Do we know?
Yeah, I think he's graduated with a degree in music. He went on to be this musician, and I think he's doing all sorts of great stuff for music, and went to Lethbridge, I think, to the university. We had him at our gala one year, told his story, and he played with the band, and so that was incredible.
When you said you put your guitar on his chest, I was like, there's a patient in the bed, and you put oh my God, there must have been some people who were kind of like, but then he felt it.
And I ended up leaving the guitar with him. I gave it to him.
Yeah.
That's the power of music, man. Look, I've seen it firsthand.
The songwriting heals you, but so often it's the case, and I'm sure you've had more than this incredible incident that you just explained. You've had people come up to you and tell you how important your songwriting has been to them over the years.
Yeah. We've since branched out with our touring as well, where we've gone into these small communities, 300 seat venues up to 1,200 seat venues, and we've literally partnered with, the Rotary clubs or the Kinsman clubs or their sports teams. Like, because since COVID, all these little towns that raise dollars need to raise money. And they can't afford me. Like, they can't physically pay a fee for me to play. So we go in, literally take all the risk. I own all my production and lighting and busing. So we can do this. So everything's turnkey. So we go into these communities, we partner with them, we sell VIP tables, we sell general seating, and I get the door. Yeah. And we've raised, I think this last tour, just about $500,000 for these communities. And they get the beverage and the food, they get a sellout bonus. Well, the motto is just blowing up. Like there's hundreds of towns emailing. It's crazy, but it's all about going to the people and giving back. Because if you give back, you get stuff. You get what you give, man. It's not rocket science. And these towns, they make $15,000, $20,000 in a night, and have a guy like me come in and play, and bond together as a community, which is what has made me who I am today. These small communities.
What was your first taste of success?
I still don't think I've had it. I mean, I don't look at. Again, I just set
No, but
goals.
you know what I'm going for here. I get it. I'm not talking big picture. I'm talking about your wife has invested some money in you. You've invested time and effort and some blood, sweat, and tears to get to the point that you're at. And you've heard songs on the radio and stuff.
Yeah.
Now, when did the first when were you able to exhale?
I think when I realized I could pay my monthly bills, my mortgage.
And when was that?
I could do it. Well, let me think here. Like, probably 10 years ago is when it really started to. I always owned my stuff, but it wasn't because I wanted to. I had to. I never had the record labels knocking on my door.
What does that mean? You always owned your stuff?
So I always owned my masters. I always owned my, all my songs, my publishing, and then I got involved with a company called Olay. Met a guy who's a good friend of mine now, and kind of changed my trajectory a little bit as far as revenue goes, and then they purchased a bunch of catalogs off me, and eventually the masters, and it's like property. So it's like owning property. And then I started up again. So most of my revenue streams that got me to where I was quite comfortable didn't come from playing live shows, really. I mean, eventually that live show market came up, and now it's there. But I think just making the right choices and deals. But probably 10 years ago wasn't a long time. That was when I was fully probably, okay, I'm good. I can do whatever I want. I'm comfortable. But when you think of 25 years in the business, it takes that long. And then the reality is, it's like becoming a elite athlete. It's hard, and not everybody you see out there playing and singing and living this luxury life is making boatloads of money. Everybody has that perception that they're rich, they're a star, but it depends how you measure it, I guess.
When did you start selling a lot of tickets to your live show? You brought up
I always had goals. So my goal was, I always said, if I can get to a point where I can sell 500 hard tickets, not soft tickets, hard tickets where people are buying to come see your show across Canada at $50, $60, that's a pretty damn good living, and that was my goal. And I mean, that would have happened less than 10 years ago. I mean, we can play big festivals and soft ticket events, and there's 25, 30,000 people singing all your songs. But when you go out there and you go on tour and you set up your own show, it's hard, man. To get that ticket, that hard ticket selling base is tough.
But from that time that you were in Nashville, when you started working with Byron, and you created some songs that started to get played on the radio, did you notice an immediate upsurge in, if you had a gig, if you said we're going to play here, there was automatically a bigger response from ticket buyers?
Yeah, Blame It on That Red Dress was our first top 10.
Yep.
And that was first video,
Yep.
Then it started to move, right? But it takes a long time. I mean,
and people are like you said, you're in charge of everything that's going on, so if tickets are moving or if they're not.
Yeah,
so you're wow, that changes everything.
It does. I mean, I mean, you start winning awards. That helps your market value a little
Yeah.
bit.
What was the first award you won?
Geez.
Put you on the
There's
spot.
been a lot of them now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Songwriter of the Year was a big one.
Yeah.
Album of the Year. Yeah, I won. Won quite a few, but they're not the end all and be all.
But the first time you accepted a CCMA award?
I was an independent artist
Yeah.
at that time, and I still am. But I had knocked on every record label door to get a deal, and it was just a hard no. But I was.
Did you really? You went around and tried to do the
I tried to
major
get-
labels?
I tried to get a
You
deal.
went and
Yeah.
met with whoever was responsible for
Yeah,
running
I mean,
them
I
at the
would
time?
I would just knock on doors. I would just phone.
Yeah.
them. But I got
and you
to
go
be,
in with some of your, here's some music. This is what I do. This is the response so far. And they're all like, we think you're great, but we don't have room for you on our roster,
Yeah.
right? So what did that feel like while you're doing that? Because you've had success. Like you've got songs on the radio. You've interacted with Nashville songwriters who've had number ones in the U.S. You've had all these things. And then the labels here in Canada.
I
are
always
saying-
stayed in touch with a guy by the name of Warren Kopnick. He was at Sony.
Yep.
And I always liked Warren. He was always a straight shooter, and he always held his job. And I think he's still there, like
Yes, he
years
is.
and years and years. So Warren, when I started to have a little bit of success, he was getting warmer to the idea of working with me. But I wanted to own my stuff. So whatever I was going to do, I was going to do it as a joint venture. So yeah, I won in Edmonton. Obviously, that set the table to. I mean, I think it was
What was the first award for? Do you remember?
Well,
Was
I won like 4. I won male, I won songwriter,
Did you ever win New Artist?
I might have,
Yeah, okay. I should know that.
I
Sorry.
might have, I won a bunch, but
Yeah.
that set the table for the phone to ring like
It did.
literally within 24 hours, and that's what I mean by they follow. So,
Yeah.
and thank goodness they did, because I had a great 10 years with Sony. I mean, Shane Carter, Warren Kopnick, unbelievable people, right? And then our first deal was unique because I kind of had more of I'll call it like an a la carte type deal. Like
Yeah.
you go to a restaurant and you pick what you want to eat and there's a price beside it, So that was kind of how the first deal went down, is where I was owning the stuff. I was paying for my masters and I was picking from the menu of their services, and it cost me money to do that. So publicity, radio track, all that stuff. Well, it turned out that deal was more lucrative for me than them. So when we renewed our deal, we went away from the a la carte, and it was more like a straight up record deal. So I did the deal, but I didn't have to pay for anything anymore. They just funded it and advanced money, and away we went, and we had a great run.
So the business is flying. Okay, so that's the business side of things. Let's delve into the stuff that affects people's hearts, the fans that love you and love your songs. What are you writing about, and what songs are touching you during the earlier phase of your career? What songs do you want to put out that end up defining who Gord Bamford is as an artist?
I never sat down to write a song for myself. That was the thing. I always sat down to write a song in my mind, thinking, what would fans want to hear?
Is that right?
What would they want to hear?
Okay.
I mean, some of the stuff I wrote, obviously, yeah, I can feel that stuff. Songs like Unreal, Leaning on a Lonesome Song was a big one. I lost my brother-in-law to, mental health issues, and wrote that, with him in mind. But that song has been, life-changing for many, many people. So that's kind of what I always set out to do is write stuff that, people can relate to.
Song of the Year, and it's incredibly beautiful. That's one of my favorite songs that you.
Yeah, probably
written.
one of my favorites.
Love the way that it made me feel, and I think it stands the test of time. That's a forever song. But every now and again, when I talk to people, this comes up more often than not, when they write something that's incredibly personal, and it comes from maybe a personal thing, a thing that happened to them in their life, and they're not sure if it's going to connect with so many people. It ends up being a massive hit, whether or not people are connecting with it for the intended reason that you wrote it for, or if they ascribe separate reasons to it, their own personal reasons to it.
That's kind of the great thing
Yeah.
about country music. It does speak to you. It's healing.
I'm just, wondering about the songs that you're drawn to, the songs that you're drawn to creating, and if you think there's a through line there in the Gord Bamford catalog.
Yeah, for sure. If I go back and listen to, some of my favorite songs, my best songs, are album cuts. Like no one's even heard them. I wrote a song called "Fishing," which is a true story about my youngest daughter. And it all just sways back to life lesson. Yeah, that's why they call it fishing. Sometimes you hook them, sometimes you don't. You know, some are
great.
keepers, some you throw back. I mean, it's a life story, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm also a big fan of the best song wins. Like, I listen to songs. I love getting songs pitched to me, and I'll cut the best song. I don't need to write it.
Looking back at your catalog now, the extensive catalog that it is 25 years in, what do you think your crowning achievements are in the world of songwriting? What do you love?
I love the song called "Old," which has never got out.
Okay.
It's really George Strait.
Let's do the ones that you want people to discover, and then we'll go back to the ones that people know.
Alan Jackson had that on hold a couple times, and it never got cut. But I like a lot of the older record, like the Honky Tonks and Heartaches record was probably my favorite. There's a song called "Gold" to me that I really love, which I guess is pretty personal. That'll take you through the journey of, family, kids, wife, and they're all gold to me, right? And that's what gold to me is, right? So it's, there's a lot of album cuts that I really like, But, as far as, Drinking Buddy was a huge branded song that.
Where'd that come from? Tell me about Drinking Buddy.
Just the title I had. And me and Byron, and I think Mark Irwin was the guy. Yeah, we wrote that. But, and then I thought to myself, I'm always thinking about a T-shirt or a hat, or how can we sell this stuff, right? And Drinking Buddy's just, I don't even think it topped 20. I might have. I think it did top 20, but I mean, we can't keep the T-shirts on the shelf. I mean, it's crazy. Or the hats, or the brand. It was a brand. Hashtag redneck. It's a brand. Redneck coffee, redneck spices. Who's your farmer? Like, there's always and I'm lucky to be able to do that sort of stuff because I've got to the level that I'm at, that people want to be associated with the brand. But there's more to just getting a royalty check from songs on a radio. I mean, you tour it, you brand it, you sell it, right?
All right. What about your biggest songs? Run us through your biggest.
I mean, "When Your Lips Are So Close."
I told you when you released that. I told you I was like, that
was the first number one.
Yeah,
that song, and it's still, people wait for that song every night, and that's quite a few years ago, obviously. But.
Yep. In the writing room for "When Your Lips Are So Close," did you know you had something special that day?
Yeah. So Brent Baxter, again, Monday Morning Church. He was a lyricist. He didn't plug. So he had the idea that he'd sent to Byron, and I think he had a bit of a verse written on it, but Byron come up with that melody. Like, it's infectious, right?
It's really good. Yeah.
And we wrote the song, and it was those kind of songs are tough to get, man. Like, they're tough to get.
What's the drive home like that day after writing something like that?
I thought we had a hit. I'm like, I mean, that's the funny thing. Like, every time you write something, that's a smash, that's a hit, Well,
there's recency bias with songwriters for sure, right?
Yeah. But it was. We knew we had something there. And sometimes you'll take a song that "Life Is Good," for example. We thought the song was okay, and then we got in the studio and when we cut it, we're like, "Oh, this sounds like a hit." Like, sometimes it goes the other way.
Sometimes something that you're all convinced is going to be massive doesn't resonate.
Okay, we're going to have this song at the end of the session. If we got time, we'll cut it. Well, that was "Life Is Good," and that was top 10.
Yeah.
We weren't even it wasn't even on the list to cut. We had time. And it turned out like that.
Yes. So your instincts are not always,
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, most of the time it's gut feeling for me. Like, I'm a gut feeling guy. But no, sometimes you get pleasantly surprised.
The number of times I've talked to people and they will say that the last minute addition to a collection is the one that they almost didn't make it on, and it's the one that ends up being like some sort of career
Well, I was
milestone.
in the studio, like that "Gold to Me" song. We had, I think there's an hour left in the session, and we had musicians there. They're getting paid, and I'm out of songs. So, Phil O'Donnell, who I've worked with for a while now, Canadian, and Buddy Owens. Well, what about this one? So they wrote "Gold to Me," and they play me the acoustic demo. I'm like, I'm cutting that right now. And we cut that song, and it never got past a record. But that's kind of a shame. Like, I wish we could get more of the music out there. Nowadays, I guess you can with streaming, but I always said I'd like to go back into the vault and pull together all these album cuts that no one's ever heard and release them. Everybody think they're brand new. Yeah.
Have you figured out what a Gord Bamford song is? I know that's a tough one to
Yeah,
to
I
ask.
mean, it's just keep it simple, straight down the middle, meat and potatoes. Lifestyle music that you can relate to. It's not rocket science.
Did it change form, or do you think it's still pretty much the same as it was when you
I
started out
wavered
a
a
quarter
little
century
bit,
ago?
with the trends of what country music was or what people thought it was. So I got a little silly there for a little bit. Tried some stuff, but I just got to stick to what I do good at.
But that's an important thing to be able to figure out, and that's something that that you've been afforded by being so successful and the time that you've spent in the industry. You can afford to stray a little bit and then always kind of come back to center if you want
I'm
to.
going to go after some cool 90s covers that I grew up listening to. I think I'm going to,
What does 25 mean to you, man? You're part of the fabric of the industry, the most awarded Canadian country artist. You have.
I think I'm tied with Shania.
Are you tied with Shania? Okay, male.
Male, yeah.
There you go. You have a ton of hardware. What does it look like from where you are, looking back at it?
I mean, this 25th is going to be a big tour for us. We're going to tour at a ton, and
You don't want to stop?
I'm going to slow down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to slow down and enjoy some stuff that my wife and I haven't been able to do because I've been gone lots, and the kids are getting older. But no, I'm never going to stop. I don't think it's just too fun, man. The job's too fun. I don't think I'm going to ever retire from it.
So, I asked you earlier when you thought you were kind of in it and when you realized that you were doing this for a living, and it kind of seems like it snuck up on you, and then that's just always the way it's been. This kind of life, man, you were in the center of it, controlling things and making things happen, but almost accidentally, the industry evolved around you to the point where you were just kind of doing your thing. And you've been doing it for 25 years.
We just go to work, Paul.
Yeah.
That's all we do. We go to work. I have great people that work with me and for me, and they do all the hard work. They're way harder working than I am. They execute stuff. I'm not an easy guy to work for at times either. Like I'm very, I want things done a certain way, and I can sometimes come across wrong, and I'm not the easiest guy in the world to work for. But if you do good by me, I'll do good by you. That's just kind of been the way it rolls for me. And yeah, we got a great team. Like we just got a great team of people that believe in what I do and execute, which is the key.
When you look at your set list, what song do you look forward to the most?
I actually love getting into the old country. Like sometimes we'll pull out some old 90s country. We just rehearsed a big medley of 90s country that we're going to put into the show, which, I enjoy that.
Your song, a song that
Probably Leaning on a Lonesome Song.
Yeah, right. Because you just know in that moment, as a bringer of joy, as somebody that is going to transport people for a moment, you're now giving them something, and you can kind of let the song be. You can be in it. I know the register that it's in is not like you can kind of like you can deliver that pretty easy, right?
Yeah, most nights. Depends how late we were the night before, but Heaven on Dirt is one of the more current ones of mine. Like that song just, I had that song for 3 years before I put it on a record. And then, I don't like talking about it, but when we went through the pandemic, I'm sitting out at the lake where I live and going through archives of songs that I haven't cut yet. And that just kind of hit me. That one's like, got a pretty good Heaven on Dirt. I got to cut that song. So that is, I guess that's a bit personal. It didn't start out that way, but, I kind of reflected on where I was at that time and the fact that, I'm not going to work for 2 years and I'm going to be fine doing that, which pretty lucky to do. Just kind of pretty lucky to live on this little piece of heaven on dirt, and so that song is one of my favorites.
It seems like you've missed too many opportunities in your career. It seems like you're pretty good at like being aware. Writers have to be observant, right? You said that just on the drive up here to Desert Star for this particular trip, you were taken with a few turns of phrases in the car ride up. You're like, oh, that's a good title for a song. That's a good title for a song. You're an observant person. The best writers are usually pretty observant people because if you're not observing the human condition, you're listening to a cool idea for a song title. But you also seem to be really, really good and hyper-tuned to business opportunities. And so the same way that you and philanthropy are inextricable, it seems that you and your business is just the Gord Bamford Inc.
Yeah.
Gord Bamford Incorporated is a thing. You're always open to Gord Bamford Cologne. Now there's an idea. There seems like that's a good name for a song. It's also a really good idea for some merch. I can see the merch table happening. You kind of just think on those levels simultaneously, don't you?
Brands. I mean,
Yeah.
Merch.
Some people can make it sound like a dirty word, right? You're like, your brand, but you don't make it sound like a dirty word. You just make it sound like this is the way my business operates.
Brands and partnerships. I've had a great partnership with Kubota, which has been, huge, and it really is who I am. PV Mart was a great partnership, and aligning ourselves with the right brands.
Do you remember the first kind of like instance where there was somebody who came to you and said, "Yeah, hey, listen, I'd like to give you a few bucks to stick the logo of my business on the side of your truck." What was it?
Well, there was a trucking company that out of Western Canada that had my day job record and face plastered all across them, but they were just doing that to help me. Like I didn't even.
Well, this is part of
There's
that
been a lot of
community,
people help me, where it hasn't cost me anything, and not that I wasn't willing to, invest in something, but I think they just wanted to help me out. I've had a lot of people do that for me, and I don't forget that. So I do that for lots of people now. Sometimes somebody just needs a little help.
It must be really gratifying to know that the work that you've put in, because you've obviously been a hard worker for a long time, but that the work you've put in allows you, despite how many songs, new songs, whatever you've got on the radio, whether they're playing you at this particular time or not, it's got to make you feel good that you still, that things keep moving forward in all aspects of your life.
Yeah, I mean, the encouraging thing for me is, every time we put a show on sale and we want to go play somewhere, which is the biggest part of our livelihood, people still want to come out and see you. And that's very encouraging, and then, this big 25th is going to be huge for us. And again, there's going to be a lot of give back component on this tour.
I mean, you've had people with you since day one, I know, fans of your music. And I wonder, is there something that you've noticed in a Gord Bamford fan? I know a Gord Bamford fan loves country music, loves storytelling, loves your authenticity, loves the delivery, your meat and potatoes, as you called it, your words. But is there something that you notice in somebody that digs what you do and has for a couple of 2.5
They're just
decades
down
now?
home people, man. They love what I do. There's a lot of converted country fans that come out to my shows, which is, you'd think it wouldn't be that way, but it is.
It's also a cult of personality. And as we were just talking about, the fact that your music, your philanthropy, and your business are all inextricable. They're all connected. That if you buy a Gord Bamford record, chances are you're going to buy Gord Bamford.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I got good fans.
Yes, you do. It's interesting, man. The time that most people are not in the entertainment industry long enough for the thing that was cool when they started to cycle around and be cool again.
Yeah.
And a lot of artists in their late 20s, early 30s are throwing the 90s vibe in there for sure.
Big time.
But you love that stuff. That is who you are, that lane that you're in there.
Yeah, that's all I know how to do. I mean, I'm not...
Well, don't stop doing it.
Yeah, I don't want to. That's for sure.
Thanks for listening. This has been Storytellers.